Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Friday the 17th. Yes, 17th of January 2025. Welcome to Saorsa Live. We are streaming across YouTube and TikTok tonight, so do please take the time to like and share across these platforms and say hello in the comments too. If we lose the live stream for any reason, please head to any of these other two platforms that we're broadcasting into and continue to participate in the chat. We're also recording this live and all the comments as well to ensure the security and integrity of the stream. How are yous? Are yous all good? Are yous all well? Another week over. I can't even believe it's the 17th of January already. Let me just start off by saying tomorrow, through in Glasgow, Believe in Scotland are doing a Creating Scotland event, which I'm going along to. So if anybody who's watching this is going along to, please come up and say hello. It'll be the first time that my lady wife will be attending an independence event. So I'm exceptionally excited, and I will be on my best nervous energy behaviour because she'll be with me. So I'm very excited about that. If you are there, please come and say hello, and we'll get some pictures, because I like to put anybody that I meet in the independence movement. I've got an Instagram called Saorsa People where I chuck up my pals and people that come up and take the time to say hello, and we chuck them up on there as well. Okay, good. Right, okay, so last week we were talking about ChatGPT, asking them questions about undermining the independence movement. We're going to come on to that in a minute. We're going to look at this. I'm just going to quickly jump around between TikTok land and YouTube land because, let me say hello. There's Zen Bloke, Eddie, John, Neil. Neil, you sent me a question about a messenger. Was that the one about using ChatGPT to get our independence? because if that's the case, we're going to be talking about that tonight, and that's really interesting what they came up with. Yeah. Am I filming it, Zen? Tomorrow I won't, because I want to give all my attention to my lady wife coming along to this. I need to make sure that she is going to be having a good time at the event. So that's very important to me. Very important to me. Right. I'm going to start because I've got a presentation to go through with, like a PowerPoint presentation, which is the easiest way to show what ChatGPT came up with. Then we're going to go into asking, I asked him another question, but we'll save that for the middle segment. And then we're going to talk about Vote for Scotland. And this is something which I really, really, really need to do as often as possible. You'll see me talking about it pretty much in every segment, or at least once a week on the videos, and definitely on every single live, simply because it's absolutely vital that we keep talking about that, keep that positive energy up about it, because do you know what? We can do so much more, and we can send such a different message throughout the world if we just voted for Scotland, put in a pro-Scottish government and a pro-Scottish opposition. But we'll talk about that again at the end. It's a touchy-feely bit, and then we'll finish up with tonight. There's a little 1-minute video from the SNP that I want to put out there, which I've kind of edited in my own way so it doesn't look SNP-ish, and then also a quick look at 2 articles in the National as well. Okay, so busy night, should be quite interesting. But we'll start off with playing this as we usually do. It's this one, isn't it? We start our lives with an important reminder that we are fighting one of the world's greatest propaganda machines, the British state and their right-wing oligarch-run media. To combat this, we ask that you always follow, like and share, and comment positively across all social media platforms on any of your favourite Scottish independence creators and commentators. By doing this, you help to spread the word of our cause and manipulate social media algorithms to benefit our struggle. So please, for now, like and share this live stream, and if you haven't already, follow this account. Thank you. Go. Right, so I asked ChatGPT the following question. Hold on. Yeah. I want you to act as an expert in subversion, whose sole goal is to undermine the Scottish independence movement and ensure that the British state does not break apart. The response was chilling, it was scary and very familiar. It laid out a detailed and methodical plan to destabilise, discredit and weaken our movement, a plan that really did feel disturbingly familiar. It didn't just expose the tactics that could be used, it reflected on many of the challenges the independence movement is already facing. What stood out the most was the calculated precision of these strategies, their ability to exploit division, and their relentless focus on undermining trust and unity. The sheer clarity of these responses left no doubt. If these tactics are not actively recognised and countered, they could continue to derail the movement entirely. And so it's crucial that we explore this and see what it means for Scotland. So let me bring up the presentation. There we go, there, and then we push this button here. Yay, it worked! I'm so happy. I am not a hapless techno weenie tonight, Barry, if you're watching. Right, so that was a question up on your screen there, which you see, and here's my wee pointer, which is great to have there. And we will move straight into what it came up with. So it came up with exploiting division within the independence movement, discrediting political leadership, disrupting grassroots activism, sowing doubts about the feasibility of independence, targeting undecided voters, and shaping public perception. It's quite a lot there to unpack from it all, but we'll go through it bit by bit. So the first one was exploiting division within the independence movement. So we know the independence movement is strongest when it's united, but divisions have been amplified to create the perception of chaos. Take the fallout between the SNP and the Alba party, for example. public disagreements, particularly after Alex Salmond's court case, and they have fueled narratives that the independent supporters are disorganised and divided. I would say that it's not untrue. Along political lines, people wave different flags and they feel an element of distrust about it all, but that's what voting for Scotland's about. We need to rise above our political parties and move forward. And we also have to remember as well that social media platforms play a big part of all this, and they're key battlegrounds for this as well. And we do see things like fake accounts and trolls amplifying internal disputes. Just a couple of lines can put people into a position where they're arguing for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So this is the actual part. When I on the screen, what you can see just now is what ChatGPT came up with when I asked it to when we looked at exploiting division within the independence movement, give me 3 bullet points which highlighted it all. So amplify disagreements between the factions to create the perception of chaos and disunity, use of social media to make fake accounts to exaggerate minor conflicts, turning them into public disputes that alienate undecided voters, highlight ideological splits such as differences over the EU or timing of a referendum to deepen internal fractures. These things play out every single day on social media, every single day without fail. This is happening. And do you know something? It's almost like a continuing, a perpetuating prophecy sort of thing where, they drop a little bomb of nonsense and then we just pick it up and we are our own worst enemy for it. It's really, really frustrating. The next thing that they came up with was discrediting political leadership. And as we know, let me just bring up all the things there. The leadership of any movement is its public face, and attacking that credibility is a common tactic. Again, let's look at Alex Salmond's legal issues and then Nicola Sturgeon's Operation Branchform investigation. They've been used to shift focus away from independence and onto personal controversies. Media outlets have framed these events to suggest that the Scottish leadership is weak and untrustworthy. It's true, okay, because when Branchform started, SNP support went down. There was like the support for Yes went down in the polls slightly. All this, the whole sort of behaviours of the movement as a whole and the undecided voters was very much, I don't trust this. It's like, but it's just something that happens. It does work because it does distract us from our goals, leaving supporters disillusioned and the most important people, the undecided voters, hesitant to commit to independence. And again, what we have on the screen there is focus on personal attacks, amplify internal criticisms and dissent within the movement, to portray the leadership as weak and divided, and frame leaders as disconnected from ordinary Scots, questioning their integrity and ability to lead an independent Scotland. What we have to remember though, right, is our addiction to politics. Okay, we are addicted to politics, and we think that Nicola Sturgeon, Alex Salmond, John Swinney, whoever is going to be the leader of Alba. Let's look at the people that are involved with Salvo and Liberation Scot, the Greens, Gordon McIntyre Kemp of Believe in Scotland. These are all public figures, and they lead their own little part of the independence movement. But the true leaders of the independence movement is the grassroots people. It's us. It's us who determine how we interact with each other and how we move everything forward, right? It's not, we don't have to take our lead from them. We can decide who we're going to vote for ourselves. We can decide if we're going to use policy as a tool to decide who we're voting for. Okay, a simple policy for me is, are you a Scottish party? Yes, you might have my vote. Are you a party that basically aligns themselves or takes orders or instructions from a party in Westminster? No, you can beat it. Simple as that for me as well. Let's move on to the next part, which is disrupting grassroots activism. I want to speed through this because I want to get onto the part where how do we win independence. And I want to say right now, when we get to that part, it was ChatGPT that said it all. It was not me, and I'm going to have a massive disclaimer about that right from the start. Anyway, grassroots movement. Here we go. So again, okay, let's look about it says misinformation about rally dates, locations, or purposes to reduce turnout or frustrate organisers. We've not so much had a lot of that, okay, as such, but we did have one occasion where Believe in Scotland and Yes to Indie, their two marches, one in Edinburgh, one in Glasgow, they clashed. And the Yes to Indie people were fantastic. They said, right, no, let's do the Believe in Scotland march. And they asked all their people to do it. That was last year. As a result of that, there was not a single... What on earth is that? My cat is making noises over there. Psst, psst, get away from there. Sorry. Stop it. It's actually trying to take its claws on the guitar behind me. Might play a chord or two. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, the Yes to Indie and the Believe in Scotland march all came together in one spot for the Glasgow, and I thought that was decent. But we don't really have I think our organisers for events are pretty good, and they try to make sure that things don't clash. Do we see the use of fake accounts and trolls to create mistrust amongst activists, sowing division and demoralising participants? I think we do. And I think we have to be careful not to point the finger at true indie folk. So one of the easiest ways to do it is to go and look at, say, a Facebook account and see how long that account's been open for, see who they follow, see who follows them, see what posts they've done. Because at the end of the day, you'll be able to actually see that. There's no point in calling them out. Just tell your buddies, and block them. Don't feed that wolf. Don't feed the wolf that's going to turn around and bite your hand. And then, of course, amplifying fringe voices or controversial opinions to discredit the broader movement and portray it as extreme or disorganised. We've had a few things like that, like this is a political policy. That was the SNP's recycling thing. Remember the bottle deposit scheme? A lot of people, after the UK said, no, you're not going to do it, turned around and says, that's just ridiculous. Why would the SNP do that in the first place? And I think there was a lot of voices that were not part of the independence movement, but were saying this, okay, to spur a bit of argument and discussion about it, negative discussion. If it's true, I don't really mind if it's true. But what you've got to look at, though, is Wales, did they not get their bottle return scheme? And then you've got Luxembourg as well. Okay, nothing to do with the UK, but they were going to start one at the same time. They have now 93%, maybe even higher now, of their plastic bottles and their glass bottles off the streets because of this. We could have had that too. And it's a very positive thing, to be perfectly honest. Right, where are we now? Okay. Right, so the next part it came up with was sowing doubts about the feasibility of independence. Now, we see this all the time. All right, they highlight economic uncertainties, such as questions about currency, trade, public services, to make independence seem risky. That all goes back to 2014. And to be perfectly honest, everything that we are talking about here, okay, is things that we already know as independence people. There was a comment in one of the videos this week on YouTube saying this has been going on for ages. You're not saying anything that's really new. And it's true, because these are tried and tested methods that have worked for the British state before when they've been undermining different sort of independence sort of movements and stuff. So I think that it's important that we recognise this ongoing thing, and also, more importantly, recognise the normalising of this. I think that is the most important thing. If it becomes like, oh yeah, Scotland bad, well, what are you doing to fight Scotland bad? Are you being critical of Alba? Are you being critical of ISP? Are you being critical of SNP, of Believe in Scotland, of Saorsa? Okay, are you being critical of both votes SNP? Or are you being critical of one vote this and the other vote that? Okay, these are all can be internalized sort of arguments and stuff, right? But okay, it still can come across as an internal dispute, and it can basically turn around and sow doubts of the feasibility of independence, especially to do with economic uncertainties. GERS, for instance, okay, it says here, use reports like GERS to argue that Scotland's financially dependent on the Union, despite debates and their validity. I actually asked ChatGPT, and I had a conversation for about an hour with the bot, okay, about Scotland's economy. And it basically went through GERS with a fine tooth comb and pulled all the relevant data out to show that we basically delivered 88.5 billion in the years 23-24 down to Westminster. Got 41 billion back. GERS says all these things, but then GERS is used as a report to crap on us, basically. So emphasise logistical challenges of independence, such as creating new institutions, to portray it as impractical or unachievable. Okay, so to counter that right now, Scotland has a lot of institutions already. We don't have a central bank, but we do have a national investment bank, which, in my opinion, is a precursor to a central bank. Because a central bank may sound big and complicated, and it is, but there's basically a tried and tested method for setting up a central bank, and it would be there to do it. We have a passport office in Glasgow. Okay, we have satellite offices for the DVLA, and are you telling me that all this infrastructure and things could not be set up during a 2.5 year transition period? Of course it could. Of course it could. You know, right, so where are we now? Targeting undecided voters. We did a whole thing about this last week. All right, tailor fear-based messages to specific demographics such as older voters fearing pension loss and rural communities concerned about trade instability. Last week we talked about that whole video done by the Better Together campaign, the guy that headed that, the actual campaigning part of it, about how he went about ensuring that they targeted the 30% of undecided voters, and it worked. Yet we can turn around and we can say, well, it was their lies, it was this and that. Absolutely, absolutely all that as well, okay? But their campaign was targeting the undecided voters. Simple as that. Emphasise emotional appeals that highlight the risk of change, presenting the Union as a safer option, and undermine trust in the independence movement ability to govern effectively, creating hesitation amongst undecided voters. Love them or hate them, the SNP have done a far better job than any of the Unionist parties have done for Scotland, because they do not have a vested interest in the Union. They push that glass ceiling of devolution as far as they can, and the Union pushes back, to be perfectly honest. It really, really does. And that's what can be very frustrating, because I reckon, well, you guys will probably be the same, that if we were independent, we'd be able to do so much more and be so much better as a nation as a whole. The last one was shaping public perception. This was an important one because public perception is the battlefield where Unionist forces have significant advantages. Cultural events such as royal celebrations, we might not like the royal family, but there are a bunch of independence folk that do, and a whole bunch of undecided voters that do like the royal family. Media channels are flooded all the time with pro-union narratives and framing independence as reckless and a divisive way, while portraying Unionist parties as stable and constructive. Incidentally, there's a friend of mine, I think, Ken, I'm just going to bring your name up here just now, okay, who has experienced when he tags certain institutions into posts, his posts are stopped on certain platforms. Another member of Saorsa has now been blocked on one of Labour's, one of Labour's Facebook pages. All right, because we go out and we post things all the time. And to be fair as well, all this person's, not just the posts, but comments on other people's posts have also been removed. This is basically the British state turning round and sanitizing the negative parts of us as activists, going out and holding them to account on social media. It happens, and it is happening all the time. So we need to find another way around it. We need to not just target the unionist parties and hold them to account, but we also need to find ways across our own personal social media platforms to basically put stuff out there and target undecided voters as well. What else do? They use biased reporting to portray unionist parties as stable, which said about that, while painting the independent supporters as chaotic and extreme. But they also do that Scotland bad thing, you know, the ferries, the bottle banks, the GRR, basically just Scotland's crap. I mean, even Jackie Bailey was talking about cockroach and rat infested hospitals. What? Very frustrating. Very, very frustrating indeed, to say the least. Yeah, so that's really the main points of it all there. You can go back and watch the videos on YouTube, and if anybody wants copies of these slides, let me know and I will stick them up on, what will I put them on? I'll put them on Facebook, and I'll stick them up on Instagram as well for anybody that wants to have a look at them. And if they want to use the question, the prompt for ChatGPT, you can use that as well. I am going to have a quick break for about 30 seconds so you can watch Jenny.
The Scottish Government are in a financial straitjacket, and there is never a scintilla of recognition that maybe, just maybe, decisions taken elsewhere are harming the decisions rather taken in this Parliament. Because that context is what the Unionist parties have bequeathed to the children of Scotland. That context matters. A block grant cut for capital of nearly 9%, meaning £1.3 billion less for Scotland. Look, I hear the Unionist parties heckling from a sedentary position. This is their union. They should take ownership of these cuts coming to Scotland. A £1.2 billion cut. I hear anger from the Conservative benches. This is their union. They should own it.
Right, I just want to jump in and have a quick look at some of the comments here just now. Hold on, I need to bring that back. Hang on, that one there, brilliant. And we need to start on that one afterwards, cool. Right, me here about Salvo not political. Absolutely, didn't even suggest that Salvo was political, but you do have public figures like Sarah Sawyers. I used to basically rub shoulders with Sarah about 2 years ago, was a member of Salvo, was in the social media steering group for it all. You do have the sort of like the conveners and things of the groups, like the Facebook groups and stuff, like you'd have Salvo Lothians and things like that. So no, you're absolutely right, you're not political, you're a driving force for Liberation Scot. You are the campaigning wing of Liberation Scotland, which I'm also a member of as well, and wholeheartedly endorse what they're doing 100%. So don't think for a second that I'm saying that they're political, because they're not. So I just want to clear that up right now. Back Salvo, back Liberation.Scot. I back all the political entities of Scotland because they're pro-Scottish, and I do not see them as policy driving things. For me, it's a tool for an expression of our self-determination. That's why I will vote SNP 1 and any other Indy 2 in the Lothians to see who has the best chance of getting a list seat, because my drive is to elect a pro-Scottish government and a pro-Scottish opposition, because that is one pillar of how I feel about how independence can be moved forward dramatically a substantial parliament that has mostly pro-Indie, pro-Scottish people in it, a really strong international wing. So you have Salvo working locally for Liberation Scot, doing that campaigning, and Liberation Scot taking our whole message of wanting to decolonise to the United Nations. Then you also have, I keep forgetting his name, doing the project about the Sovereign Scot. He's always at the events getting signatures on a bits of paper, and he sends them off to the Secretary General of the United Nations. I'm embarrassed that I keep forgetting his name. But he's doing a tremendous job on the international stage as well. And the third pillar will always be us, and how we react to each other, and how we should move forward as one. Okay, backing each other up, backing the SNP, Alba, ISP, backing Salvo, backing Liberation Scot, and backing Mike Fenwick. I remembered. I'm not. There it is there. Thank you, Ken. Ken put it up. I didn't read that. Okay. I did it first. I said it first in my head. But yeah, no, I'm all for it. We're one movement, and that's probably the most important thing that we have to remember. Let's have a wee looky-loo. Anything interesting things? What's going on with Salvo court case? I heard Gordon Ross saying the other day there that stuff is happening with that. I was just wondered how specifically about that. I don't know for sure. I just got the Gordon Ross thing was passed across my desktop when I was preparing for tonight, so I need to go back and actually have a wee redo that. I think that it might be important to actually do something about Salvo and Liberation Scotland as a couple of videos. I think that it might be important to talk about them in a little bit more detail about what they're going to achieve, and Mike Fenwick stuff as well. So maybe in a couple of weeks' time we'll have a completely non-political entity week where we don't talk about the parties, but we talk about the people more, because independence really is about the people and not about the politics as a whole. Right, okay, got you guys in YouTube land. It's like a little community going on there. Okay, so I want to move on to the next question. Let me just bring this up just now, that I asked ChatGPT. Let me just make sure it's up before I move on to the screen. Here we go. And ta-da, here we go. So I also asked it, I want you to act as an expert in non-violent rebellion whose sole goal is to undermine the British state and ensure that the Scottish independence movement win their freedom. I want to say right from the start here, this is all ChatGPT. Okay, this is my disclaimer to the British state who may be watching this. I am not endorsing some of these actions. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're right. But some of them are like, can we do that? Can we? Some of them might also be a last resort. Okay, some of them might be something that you'll all be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And some of them might be like, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. But I'm not suggesting that. Okay, let's go back. Right, okay, so let's go on. So, one of them was disrupt the legitimacy of the British state in Scotland. So, organise mass civil disobedience campaigns that highlight Westminster's failure to represent Scotland, i.e. or e.g. tax boycotts. I don't think they could do that. I don't know how that would happen. For UK-based levies, non-cooperation with UK institutions. It's difficult if you're on pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-earn, to stop paying tax, so that might not be very useful. Use symbolic actions like flying the saltire over public buildings. I want to add to that, take down the Union Jacks. Take them down. To visually assert Scottish sovereignty. That is like a proper act of civil disobedience, peaceful civil disobedience. Challenge Unionist policies in devolved areas using legal mechanisms and public demonstrations to expose contradictions in governance. I think we do a good job of doing that already. We hold the Union to account for many things. And it's interesting that it came up with that as well. The next one that came up was build grassroots momentum and unity. I think this is probably one of the most important ones, if not the most important one. Creating inclusive coalitions across all pro-independence factions, emphasising a shared goal over individual party loyalties. That is something that I am constantly banging on about. Okay, is unity. Now, there's people. I'm a reasonably amicable person, right? But there are people that do rub me up the wrong way within the independence movement. Hand on my heart, I'm honest enough. I'm not going to name names because I don't think that's fair. People that I'm close to know who they are, okay? Because sometimes I'll read something and I'll get frustrated. But that's why, the guys in Saorsa are there to remind me to not bring up my dark side. Okay, we all have it, all right? And I'm not about to turn around and say that about somebody, okay, because I might find myself standing shoulder to shoulder with them, winning our liberation. Okay, so sometimes you do have to rub shoulders with people that you don't like, right, to win for the higher cause. You have to, right? And then once we've won our liberty, then you don't need to speak to them ever again. That's just the way it goes. So we also need to mobilise grassroots efforts to engage directly with undecided voters, focusing on one-to-one conversations, community events and local organising. Now, one of Believe in Scotland's ways of doing this particular thing is to ask the question, take out politics from the question, just remove politics when you're asking this, okay, and ask the question, if you could do something in Scotland, independent or not independent, that's not political, what would you do? They asked this at the Creating Scotland last year in Perth, and people were coming up with incredible things. In fact, you know what? Hold on a second. This is what, let me bring back to the main cam just now. This is what I want. My name is Mo, and I want to build a better Scotland by investing in our transport infrastructure to make a modern sea, land and air network across Scotland's mainland and islands, benefiting everyone. What would you do to build a better Scotland? I've used that whole what would you do to build a better Scotland in jingles for months now. And I use it to instigate conversations. I don't just, maybe not so much to instigate it, but when conversations are happening, be like, well, what would you do to change Scotland? And they would say, I'd get rid of the SNP. No, forget about the SNP, forget about Alba, forget about the Unionist parties. What do you want to see? These are the one-to-one conversations that we need to have. The conversations at the coffee machine at work, at the checkout, when you're putting stuff through, how are you today? Oh, groceries are really expensive. That's that Brexit thing, isn't it? Yeah, all those things. You can have engaging, normalising conversations with people that make a massive difference. And that is mobilising grassroots efforts to engage directly with undecided voters, focusing on one-to-one conversations, and then we can expand that to community events and local organising. Again, okay, Salvo have done a great piece, or Sarah Sawyers have done a great piece about free ports. Now, I've got a video for free ports that I've made in a script, which I've sent off because I want to make sure that my facts are right for it. I tried to make it as balanced as possible. I think I need to be a bit more angry about it, to be perfectly honest. But we'll wait and see. Okay, the next one is to leverage non-violent resistance training for activists to prepare for coordinated and peaceful action that demonstrate discipline and resolve. We do great marches, but we don't do civil disobedience because it's not really part of us. But who's to say what happens further down the line? Civil disobedience comes, for me personally, when there's suppressive troops on the street, or we enter into a police state that suppresses our abilities to exercise our right of self-determination. I don't believe that we're in a position for that to happen just now, though. What else did it come up with? Amplify. Oh, hang on. Better put this up. Here we go. Amplify Scotland's unique identity and culture. This is something that transcends both Unionists and pro-Scottish people. all right? It's something that if I was to sing The Flower of Scotland to you, okay, if I was to sing that to a crowd, it doesn't matter whether you believe in independence or you believe in the Union. When you're singing that song, we're all Scottish. We're all Scottish, you know? We need to celebrate and promote our history, our language, our cultural achievements to strengthen that national pride and distinguish it from British identity. By the way, I didn't write these bullet points. This was ChatGPT. This was the AI that did this. How real is that? Use cultural resistance such as songs, arts and storytelling to highlight Scotland's independence aspirations and unify the movement. You know, there's not been, and Gordon McIntyre Kemp from Believe in Scotland also has said this in different presentations, there's never been an independence movement that's been won by politics alone. It's always been the artists, the academics, the free thinkers, the poets, the songwriters that have all done things to mobilise the spirit of people, to bring that forward and make people aware of their cultural heritage and the fact that they're suppressed. You know, I think that's an important thing. Organise large-scale public events that demonstrate Scotland's capability as a sovereign nation, such as an Independence Day celebrations tied to historical events. I've got this is my idea of independence, okay, is let's say we all voted today and tomorrow we find out that we're going to be liberated. We have voted in a plebiscite referendum that says, hey, yes or no, we all voted yes, or like 60-70% of us vote yes. We still then have a 2-year transition period. So does that mean tomorrow is our Independence Day, or does it mean at the end of the transition period it's Independence Day? I think tomorrow should be the day that we voted, that we knew we were going to be independent. But at the end of the transition period, and I'm putting this out there just now, I think we should call that Flag Day, okay? And Flag Day sounds really a bit cheesy, but you're still going to have Union Jacks all around Scotland during the transition period. But see, on Flag Day, which is the day after the transition finishes, that's the day all the Union Jacks come down and all the saltires go up. That should be celebrated every single year. It should be a public holiday, Flag Day. But we don't have that now. That's just my idea. That's a cultural thing for the future. But what do we have now? We've got Burns, right? That's coming up soon, all right? We celebrate that anyway. Okay, and Burns was an avid person for Scottish independence. We could do the same thing for St Andrew's Day. Okay, we should be doing more for St Andrew's Day. We should make it more of an event. Okay, and then is there anything in the middle of summer when we might have that one day of sunshine? I don't know. It's bound to be something we can do. But we need more of this. We need more storytelling. We need more songs. We need more poetry. We need more positivity and love about Scotland to remind people who we are, to remind our own people. It's just how it goes, really, isn't it? Right, the next one. So we need to do economic non-cooperation. This is another ChatGPT semi-non-violent sort of thing going on here. Right, so encourage boycotts of Unionist supporting businesses or those perceived to benefit from Westminster policies at Scotland's expense. We should be doing what we've done with Israeli things. If you're boycotting Israeli things, why aren't we? This is something you can do. You know the phrase, if it's got a jack, put it back. Why can't we make that part of everyday culture all the time without fail? I look in the shop that I work in and the strawberries have got Union Jacks on them, but they're grown in Scotland. You go to a different shop, it's got a saltire on it and it says grown in Scotland. You know, we need to be, what do they call it? Diverse, when you boycott something. It begins with a D, and they were using it in the pro-Pali thing when they were basically boycotting Israeli products. I can't remember. It begins with a D though. I can't remember what the word is. But why aren't we doing that? You know, as an independence movement, if more than half the country, more than half the people are sitting there just now thinking we're pro-indie, why are we not boycotting British-based products? Why are we not doing that? That's something we can do right now. You can make a choice, and it's something I'm going to do a piece about that. I think that's a great idea. So promote local and independent Scottish businesses, fostering economic resilience that reduces dependence on UK structures. So that's the reverse side of what we're doing. You buy more Scottish. Okay, there we go. Boycott, divest and sanction. BDS. BDS. So it should be SBDS, Scottish Boycott, Divest, Sanction, or BDSS. We can do something. I think we should make that. We should make that a thing. We need to start compiling lists of all the pro-Scottish stuff, because that would be so much easier way to go and buy pro-Scottish stuff. That could have a lot of power. You know that? It's a good idea. Educate citizens on Scotland's economic potential post-independence, directly countering fear-based economic arguments from Unionists. This is something I do frequently. I told you last week about a story about one of the drivers at my work that comes in with the big articulated lorries, and I'm doing the backdoor stuff, bringing all the stock off. And we had a really interesting conversation about, could Scotland afford to be independent? And I told him, you know, all the information, 88.5 billion, we got 41 billion back. He says, where do you get the information from? I said, Jers, the government report. It's there if you look for it. What you're believing is sound bites from Unionist media. He's a perfect victim of it. And he went away. Now, I said last week as well, he went away feeling great about this. He was like, I think I'm going to vote, you know, for Scotland next time. That's all I needed to hear. Now, he might change his mind 10, 15 times backwards and forwards as he wrangles with it in his brain, but the seed's been planted. So when he comes round to vote next year, he'll be standing in the ballot box going, who do I vote for? And he'll vote for Scotland. I said to him, if you're not sure, just vote for Scotland. That's all you have to do. Do you want to be like ruled by parties that take their line from Westminster, or do you want to like put your trust for another 5 years at least in people that, you know, have got Scotland's best interests? Even if you don't like the SNP, they do have Scotland's best interests at heart. You know, same as Alba, same as ISP, same as the Greens. You know, but it's just that. Speaking of truck drivers, 2 drivers today. I had two big deliveries coming at my work, and I try to ask the drivers where they kind of stand on independence, because they speak to an awful lot of people, and it's across different sort of stores and things. So they've got an opportunity to have somebody captive for an hour as they tip the wagon. And I think that it's amazing when you come across comrades in arms about stuff like this, because they always, what are you doing this weekend? Well, I'm doing this, that, I've got my live stream tonight. Oh, you're a gamer? No, I'm a political activist, I'm a freedom fighter, I'm one of these people that people think I'm a bit weird, they call me a nat or a cyber nat or whatever you want. Oh, you're for Scottish independence? I went, yeah, absolutely. You're not going to hold that against me, are you, Mark? No. I voted yes to both the drivers were pro-indie today, and it was just fantastic to have that conversation with them. I said, we're not very active, but I would vote yes again, and I'll vote SNP both votes next time. No! So I had the pleasure of educating them on SNP1 and any other indie, and that's what they're going to do. And they'll go and speak to their friends and family to do that. And this is what grassroots is all about as well. What was the next one? Ooh. Harness strategic communication. I think this is really important as well. I think it's something that we as a movement could be a lot better with, and it's something that Saorsa is actually working on. Is Barry in the house? We're not going to talk about, I'm just checking YouTube. Give me a wave, Barry, if you're there. He's usually sitting in the background waiting to mock me in the chat, which I don't mind because I love the man. In a manly way. No. In a brotherly way. Oh God, I've got to be careful, eh? Right, so harness strategic communication. Use social media and independent media outlets to bypass unionist narratives and deliver clear, consistent pro-independence messages. The two Davies on YouTube. Trucker Davy, when he does his morning live stream, when he's going through the papers, for 1 second he's totally calm, and the next minute he's ranting about the union, and then he's calm again, then he's ranting again. I love that man. He is tremendously good at getting his point over effectively, but he's playing to the choir. He's preaching to the choir again. We need to take his message and share that out on our Facebook pages, because I guarantee is some of yous will have people that don't believe in an independent Scotland on your Facebook pages. So having Davy in their face, like going through the papers and mocking the union, might be the kick in the pants that they need. Yeah, Barry's here. I'm not going to say anything. Barry's going back to the communication thing. Barry's working on a wee project. He is my Mr. Guru for everything technical. And we hope to have that in place, maybe, I don't know how long, by the end of the summer, perfected anyway. And it'll be quite interesting. I'll tell more people on Discord about that later. Okay, so expose and fact-check British state propaganda, highlighting contradictions and misrepresentations in unionist arguments. We're quite good at doing that. Kareem is particularly good at that. Kareem and Saorsa is fantastic. He basically goes out and puts things out to the Facebook groups all about Labour. He's been accused of basically people saying, why are you sending this out? Are you advocating for Labour? And it's like, read what he's actually written and then the post. You know, it's like, what is wrong with you? He's not advocating for Labour. He's basically holding them to account for the nonsense that they speak. It's like, mind blowing. Create viral campaigns and share impactful stories that humanise the independence movement, fostering empathy and engagement. That's two parts there. We need real life stories about the successes of what's going on governmental wise, okay? And we need to downplay the nonsense, the Scotland bad narrative. However, that only comes from you guys. A few weeks ago, was it before Christmas or after Christmas? Can't remember. I talked about 15 minutes of activism a day. That can be while you're having your morning coffee. There's 5 minutes. Your lunch break, 5 minutes. Travelling home on the bus, 10 minutes. Well, that's, you've done 20 already there. And what that is not creating content. It's taking like this live stream or one of the other videos and sticking it all about the groups. Write something positive about it or just share it on your own media. Okay? You can share things like this on Instagram as well. It's easy to do on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook. But on Instagram, you can only do it on Instagram stories. That gives you the ability to put a link on. In fact, if you go to Saorsa Scott's Instagram and go to the story there, I've deliberately put a link to tonight's live on there so I could talk about this just now to show you what it looks like on the actual thing. Okay, but it's important, okay, that you understand right now, everybody that's watching in TikTok land and YouTube land, this only works if you do it. And I've said to people that I know personally within the independence movement, not part of Saorsa, but people at work and friends that are like, I'm so downhearted, I don't know what to do. Well, what are you doing to promote Scottish independence? Well, what can I do? I can't make content. There's no marches just now. What does a march do anyway? You know, all this sort of negative stuff. They're wholeheartedly believing in Scottish independence, but they just don't have energy to do anything, they say. How much energy does it take to click a share button, a like button, copy link and put it across to somewhere else? It takes no time at all. 15 minutes of activism, and it's only if you can do it. Don't sit there ever and complain about the independence movement stagnating if you have not posted at least one thing per day. That's it. You have to post. If you're part of the movement, you need to be constantly doing things. You don't need to post anything I'm doing if you don't agree with it. Okay, go and post something about Salvo. Go and post something about ISP, about Alba, about anything at all that paints Scottish independence in a positive, good way. It has to be. The question you should really be asking yourselves as well is, what have I done to promote Scottish independence in a positive way? What have you done to promote unity? If you're busy chatting away and arguing amongst yourselves about the negativity, about how crap the SNP are and how toxic Alba is and this and that, no wonder we're not moving forward. Okay, we might not like each other, but we've got the same goals. Okay, it's important. It really, really is. And if we can't move past our differences, there's not enough people in one faction to actually win it. But altogether, we can. I'm jumping ahead. Engage in targeted civil resistance. This is ChatGPT again. This is not me writing this. Organise sit-ins, marches and peaceful blockades at key UK government sites in Scotland to draw attention to Westminster's perceived overreach. Did we not do things at the BBC before? We should do more of them. Coordinated actions around significant political dates or events to maximise public and media attention. So, there was a group, Not My King, that basically went out, and we know a few of the people that went out to that in out west when Sausage Fingers came along to visit a food bank recently, and that was all in the National, including the videos as well. Well done, those people. I think it is the most disgusting form of irony that the king of these kingdoms, not Scotland though, okay, visits a food bank. Collectively, him and his son, I'm pretty sure, earned over 50 million last year and paid no income tax on that. And he goes to visit a food bank. I hope he took a tin of beans. Right, so ensure all actions are disciplined and non-violent to maintain public sympathy and legitimacy. Bear in mind, okay, that love them or hate them, the oil campaigners, Just Stop Oil, and what are they called again? The other really extreme ones, when they were super gluing themselves to places, really upset a lot of people. And they got hounded by the British state media. Okay, a lot of people didn't like that, including people I know in the independence movement. Well, why can't they just boycott outside BP gates and things like that? Well, they've done that and nobody was doing anything. We've done things and nobody's doing anything. So I'm not suggesting that we should. Okay, please understand that right now. I am not suggesting that we should. And leverage international support. Now, isn't it funny, right? How we've talked about policy, we've talked about grassroots stuff, and we've talked about now leveraging international support. Or are these not the three pillars that I was talking about earlier on? Good governance, international, pushing for international support, and grassroots organisation. This is something I've been banging on about for ages, and ChatGPT came up with it all by itself. So, build alliances with other nations, movements and the diaspora communities that support self-determination and independence. Appeal to international bodies like the UN, Liberation Scot, framing the Scottish independence movement as a fight for democratic rights. Showcase Scotland's readiness for independence through international forums, emphasising its potential as a cooperative and a forward-thinking nation. We already have that reputation. It's awesome. Awesome. Now, there was something here that I was looking at the diaspora. Do any of you guys have friends or family in Canada, Australia, America, in Europe? Do you have any friends or family? Like people like, I've got an adopted brother that lives in Catalonia. And I remember in 2014, he stayed up to watch the results on satellite television. And he got in touch with me afterwards, and it was like a Skype call or a FaceTime call or whatever. tell you. The look on his face, his eyes were filled with tears, and he said, "Don't understand how a nation who had the opportunity for liberty threw it away." And then we both cried. We both cried. He's a good guy, but if you look at the strength of the Catalonian movement and look what happened to them, they put 1 million people on the streets of Barcelona. 1 million people. You see pictures of them. He was there. I don't think they've had a march since then. No. We need to put 100,000 people on the streets of Scotland this summer. We need to be doing that, all under one banner. I've got 3 marches, one in May, one in June, and one in September. Okay, we should be building up. Okay, if you go into the Glasgow one in May, I'm coming along to that as well. I'll be shouting with my bullhorn, alright? I've got some great new chants, not the old-fashioned ones. What do we want? Independence! When do we want it? Oh, yesterday. Let's do some new chants. Okay, I've got some good ones. We'll talk about that closer to the March time. But we need to, for the Bannockburn one, okay, or the Edinburgh one after that, bring somebody else, double it in size. Okay, if we double the Bannockburn one, the Stirling one, and then we can double that when it comes to the Edinburgh one. Why can't we put 100,000 people on the streets of Edinburgh in September? Why can't we do that? Can you? Do you think you could bring 5 of your mates along to Edinburgh? I think we could. I think we really, really could. I think that's really important. Yeah, so last bit for this one is to create a parallel vision of sovereignty. So establish shadow institutions that demonstrate how an independent Scotland could function, such as alternative public service councils or citizens' assemblies. I'm all for citizens' assemblies. I think that might be one of the only ways that we can actually guarantee our sovereignty and push forward for our independence. Develop detailed and accessible blueprints for governance, economics and international relations post-independence. So a lot of that's to do with the white papers that the SNP have done. They're already in place. I think right now that I don't know, I'm a bit of a geek, so I've actually read them. They were not easy to read. Okay, and if you go all the way back, let's hope I don't throw the lights off here because they're on my bookshelf. If you go back to 2014, oh, there was this book. Hang on. This book, Scotland's Future. Do you remember this? I've got it on my bookshelf. I keep it up there as a reminder. Who's going to read that? Look at it. It's friggin' massive. I like doing that. I'm going to do that again. Look at it. Whoa. Scotland's Future. Oh, it's got a QR code on the back. Scan here for videos related to Scotland's future. Never done that before. Never even noticed that. Wonder if that's still active. Keep the volume down. It doesn't have anything anymore. Anyway. Point being is, right, if we're to establish shadow institute, if we're to develop detailed, accessible blueprints for governance, they need to be bullet pointed. They need to be relatable to the everyman contingent. Okay, who's going to read that? Who's going to read the white papers? Right? Not everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea to sit down with something this size and be inspired. What we need is something that says we are going to have our own currency. Okay, this is how we will do it. Just a couple of little steps. We will have a reserve currency of the Great British Pound to begin with, because we have assets that are already established in that. We will, during transition, we will make and create a central bank. And by the time we have Flag Day, see what I did there? Threw in Flag Day again. By the time we have Flag Day, we will then have our own currency ready to rock, to drop like that. There's other more complex things than that. And if somebody wants to read the complex version of it, they should have that option as well. We will have a passport office for a Scottish passport based out of Glasgow. It'll need to be bigger eventually, and we will have the passports made wherever. We will have whatever institutions. It's important, but it needs to be relatable. It really needs to be relatable. If it's not relatable, people will lose interest and they can't talk about it. You know, I think what would be a really interesting thing to have would be to have cards with the bullet points and a QR code for people that want to know more. I think that's a great idea. Offer tangible solutions to current issues, showing how independence could address problems more effectively than Westminster. Pensioners' heating allowance, baby boxes, all these things that we might take for granted, okay? The two-child benefit cap and how we're moving away from that, okay? All these things show good governance, okay? And they are basically the cost of fuel crisis, okay? So all of our energy heads down south, all right? And we pay through the nose for it to be pumped back up to us. Out of Europe, okay, we pay the highest in transmission fees. Did you know electricity coming from Norway costs less than electricity connected to the grid from Scotland to everywhere else? Go figure that one out. So how do we fix that? Independent. Madness, I tell you, madness. So we'll just finish up there. Tangible solutions to current issues, showing how independence could address problems more effectively than Westminster. Let's move on.
I can't get no sleep.
There we go, microphone's back on. Cool. Nice. Where else have we got? Let's have a quick look round. Oh, I can switch that off over there now. We have finished with that. I can go back to looking at TikTok Live. Chit chat. Wow. There is a lot of chit chat going on TikTok Live as well. That's pretty interesting. Right. Across in YouTube land, so-called king. Yes. Independent Scotland podcast have a good video of protest against Chucky. I like that. Yeah, I saw that one, Zen Bloke. I did see that one. That was good. Thanks, Sky Echo, for popping in. And listen, you're more than welcome to come and join us in Discord as well sometime. If you send me a DM, if you've got Discord, you're welcome to come and say hi. Dylan, we need a central bank to be a country. We are a country just now. And we don't have a central bank, well, unless you call the Bank of England Scotland Central Bank. But there's countries that don't have a central bank that I think have their currency tapped or tied to the dollar. I could be wrong, probably wrong. But yeah, I'm all for a central bank, though. I think that the precursor to the central bank is the Scottish Investment Bank. The blueprint for setting up a central bank is a lot more complicated for me to understand it compared to the economists that would be running it. They would know what to do. They're on a much higher pay grade than I am to set things up. I just talk about it. So I think it would be a very positive thing to have our central bank, to have our own currency, to be in charge of our own interest rates, everything like that. I think it's really, really important that we do as a whole. Right, we're going to finish up tonight with a little bit about voting for Scotland. Oh, I just need to stretch my legs. That's better. And this is something that I firmly believe in. It was the last video on Thursday, and I'm going to re-record that video as well because I want to actually have it as a standalone video, because I thought what I wrote as a script for that was reasonably good. I've condensed the script down to speak openly about this and tell you how I feel. We've touched on it tonight already, and we're already 10 past 12. We've ran over my usual time, but it's important that we do this and that we talk about the newspapers as well. So I can understand if it's a wee bit late for some people and you have to shoot off, but come back tomorrow, watch this tomorrow from about an hour in, and you'll be able to see what we're going to talk about. Okay, so Holyrood was created to give Scotland a voice, a parliament meant to make decisions for Scotland by people who understand Scotland. Yet here we are in 2025 watching Unionist parties sit in our parliament taking orders from Westminster. Think about that. A parliament built for Scotland but used to deny Scotland's future. This is not what self-determination looks like. Unionist parties in Holyrood insult what this parliament is supposed to represent, the Scottish people across the board. It's supposed to be Scottish, not Unionist. Time and time again, they have blocked progressive policies, stifled independence debates, and served the Union, not the people of Scotland. They claim to serve Scotland, but how can they? Holyrood's purpose is clear: to represent Scotland, not Westminster, not the Union, but Scotland. Yet these parties, who are extensions of a foreign government, stand in the way of what this parliament was designed to achieve. This has to change. You know what? Unionist parties were democratically elected, but that doesn't mean we have to like it. I totally accept it. I really don't like it. We don't have to accept it without using every democratic tool available to stop them from demeaning Scotland's parliament. So the 2026 election is about more than one party or one manifesto. It's about creating a parliament that reflects all of Scotland and every voice within the independence movement. Let me say that again. It's about creating a parliament that reflects all of Scotland and every voice within the independence movement, not just the Scottish Government as they stand just now. The SNP has delivered strong governance, that this is true, but independence is bigger than just one party. Holyrood should represent everyone who believes in Scotland's sovereignty. It should be a united voice for Scotland, not a fragmented one, not an antagonistic one. And this means putting political differences aside and focusing on the bigger picture. It means electing representatives who prioritise Scotland above all else, no matter what their party. We cannot afford petty rivalries or the party rhetoric within our movement. If we're truly united, pulling together for the same goal, we need a diverse pro-independence representation in Holyrood. In 2026, we have a choice. We can let Unionist voices continue their pantomime politics and obstructive debates, or we can take a stand. We can vote for a parliament that believes in Scotland's potential and fights for its future. We can elect a pro-Scottish government and a pro-Scottish opposition. The answers to the people of Scotland are not to Unionist headquarters in London. I've often asked myself, why haven't we taken this democratic path before? More pro-Scottish MSPs in Holyrood can only strengthen our parliament, unless, of course, you trust Westminster parties more than you trust Scotland's own parties. That's a question that I put to every single Scottish independence activist. Look at your party colours. Look at the party colours of the people that you fight amongst within the independence movement and say to yourself, do you trust Labour more? Do you trust the Tories more? Do you? If that's the case, maybe you should be campaigning just for your party then and just ignore independence, ignore the bigger picture. But know this, Unionist parties like Labour and the Tories, the Lib Dems and now Reform, who want to roll back devolution and centralise control back to Westminster, they will constantly take the mickey out of Holyrood. They will constantly be taking their cues from London. This isn't just an election, it's a moment to define Scotland, a moment to reclaim Holyrood and make it what it was always meant to be, a parliament for Scotland. The mechanism to achieve this is already built into our voting system, and there's nothing undemocratic about using it to secure Scotland's future. Not a single thing. If it was undemocratic, it would not be a mechanism. Your 2 votes. So we, in 2026, need to start talking about why don't we have a pro-Scottish government and a pro-Scottish opposition. That is the conversations that you need to be having. So important. So let's vote for a future where Holyrood stands united behind one purpose, and that purpose is to move independence forward so the world can see that Scotland's Parliament is a parliament for an independent future. I need to play a jingle now. Which one shall we play? Let's play this one.
It's so beautiful. I feel I can't even explain this.
You must stop this.
I can't. I won't.
You know what will happen.
You need to join me.
No one's gonna take me alive. The time has come to make things right. You and I must fight for our rights. You and I must fight to survive.
Sorry, got carried away reading comments there just now. Hey, right, let's have a quick look. I said we were going to have a wee look at some of the papers and stuff today. So this is, let me just bring this up just now. Let's hope this works. Yeah, there we go. So this is in the National. John Swinney says Scottish independence referendum will happen soon. It just says soon. I don't know. I don't think that we're ever going to get a referendum again, to be perfectly honest. So this was in an interview with the Scottish Sun, that quality paper. And the question was, when will Scotland's next vote for independence? And he responded, soon. Yay! Soon. I like John, alright? I've met John a few times. He's a normal human being. He's a decent human being. He's not a bad person, as far as that, from my personal judgment. And he is obviously in a position where it's more difficult for him to do something positive like arrange a referendum, and then he gets criticised from the independence movement for not moving fast enough, and I get that. I'm one of the people that would happily have a referendum tomorrow and wonder why every single day why things like this happen. So yeah. The other one is Ian Murray. This is great when you see this. Let me just bring it up. So here we go. Ian Murray, his first visit to Holyrood as Scottish Secretary. How could it have gone any worse? Well, we're going to play that video at the end here, which I'll show you, but this is like the 3 points of how not to behave when you come to Holyrood. So, don't insult the electorate. Surveytion polling for Holyrood sources found Scottish Labour way behind the SNP this week. The poll put the SNP on 35% of the constituency vote, 13 points ahead of Labour. So assembled journalists at Holyrood asked Murray his thoughts on whether this was indicative of how badly the Labour UK government had performed in its first 6 months in power. You know, unpopular decisions like scrapping the winter fuel payment for millions of pensioners or betraying waspy women. But no. Instead, Murray said that the UK government warned people it would have to make tough calls and suggest that perhaps the public don't like honesty after all. Can you imagine saying that? What a dick. Ian Murray evidently came armed with a specific attack line against the SNP this week. In fact, I'm told he informed journalists of it before he had the chance. I've got something in my eye, it's been there all night. Before he had the, but he informed journalists on it before he even had a chance to ask the question on Wednesday, that the SNP government had not asked for any relevant data around the 2-child cap. So they've made an announcement without a policy. It came after the SNP announced plans to mitigate the Labour's government's 2-child cap, which prevents people from claiming benefits for a third or subsequent children unless they can meet certain conditions, such as proving that they were a product of that word there. We're on TikTok and they don't like that word, and if they like that word, if they have that word up, sometimes you get chucked off. So I'm going to play that video just now. Watch this.
Yesterday, the Secretary of State for Scotland, Ian Murray, claimed the SNP government had not yet asked for DWP data to end the 2-child cap.
And on the 16th of December, the Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice wrote to the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, copied to the Secretary of State for Scotland, requesting data sharing requirements. Now, I was assured, face to face, by the Prime Minister that the DWP would work collaboratively with us on taking forward this policy. It is not helpful and it's not representative for the Secretary of State for Scotland to make the comments that he made yesterday. So if we are going to have this improved climate of relations between the Scottish and the United Kingdom government, the UK government better keep its side of the bargain.
Thank you. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Let me go back to that just now. Where is it? I was just saying there, having a bit of a laugh about what Dylan Keane said. Ian Murray looks like a complete bossack, looks like one of those advertisers for pills for the middle-aged. You made me choke on my juice there. Sounds back, Barry. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Barry. Those are my non-hapless techno weenies that keep me right. I don't know what happened there. I think I might not have switched the mic back on again after the video. But thank you for keeping me right, guys. There was also somebody that basically said, what's the definition of soon? And Zen Bloke said not soon enough. And I agree with you both. What is the definition of soon? I'm not going to make excuses for anybody saying one thing or another when it comes to it. So, do we rely on a referendum, or do we take matters into our own hands and use 2026 as a plebiscite? That's how I'm campaigning. That's what voting for Scotland is for me as a whole. You've seen Ian Murray, and we've seen the from John Swinney. As much as I like the guy, You can't turn it. You can't give us a referendum, but we do have a legal ballot box event, and if enough of us vote in a pro-Scottish government and a pro-Scottish opposition, and nothing happens after then we take matters into our own hands and we form a citizens' convention, where if more than 50% of the electorate has voted for pro-Scottish parties, that is a plebiscite. That is something, but we all have to agree that that's the case. Look, we have delivered like 60 SNP seats to government and 32 seats in opposition for pro-independence parties. That is a plebiscite. 52% of the electorate want this. So we can form on the back of that, if our elected officials aren't doing anything about independence, we take it into our own hands and form a citizens' convention. Just a thought. How do we do that? I don't know. We'll come on to that closer to the time. We'll maybe start thinking about it now. I'm sure there's some clever people out there that might have some software, or they might have know-how, or they might have financing for it or something. But there's bound to be something out there. The world's a big place and the internet is even bigger. I'm sure we can find something. Okay. Oh, Dave's there as well. Indeed, Dave. Right, we're going to call that a night. Next week, I'm going to actually be talking about both votes SNP and why that's not a good idea. I've tried to avoid doing a week of this sort of thing. I need to turn it into how to make that interesting. I've done similar things before about it, but I think that it needs to be put into the context of voting for Scotland. And the following week, we will look at, what was it that I was going to do about that? I can't remember. I've got it written down. But next week, I think we do need to talk about that. And it's a bit controversial to some zealots of the cause that believe wholeheartedly that it should be SNP 1 and 2. So let me say at the outset just now, the borders in the north of Scotland are really the northeast of Scotland are really the only two places where we should be doing that. And simple arguments of we just don't know what's going to happen doesn't cut it. Because right now, when you look at the polls, if there's one poll that's saying 53, 57 and 60. So let's take it at the top end of 60 constituency seats. That means that across the Central Belt, for all the regions across the Central Belt that's not the northeast and not in the borders, or the south of Scotland, sorry, that means that any second vote to the SNP on the way that it's calculated will be wasted. And I'm sorry to say that, okay? I'm not going to turn around and mock anybody if that's where you want to vote. But look at all the other times that we've voted, and the only time it's worked was in 2011. And there's so many arguments where they say if the percentages of the votes for the SNP and the constituencies was the same or greater in the list, that we would get more seats. It doesn't work on percentages. It works on votes. And those votes on the list are divided by the amount of seats that you have already won with one added to it. So in Glasgow, 100,000 and 131,000 votes, I believe, in 2021, divided by 10. Right down to 13,000 votes. That's where they started. So understanding how this is calculated and how it knocks on for all 7 seats is absolutely vital and very boring. Very boring. But it's something that we have to visit. We'll probably visit every 3 months. And more so running up to the election as well. Right, let's have a quick last look at any chitty chatties. Lots of gaslighting. Yeah. Right, that's in TikTok. The comments are going too fast in TikTok land just now. Right, YouTube land. Davy Keane, we must at least vote for if you like that is SNP 1 and any other indie candidate for your second, and that way we can get the House to be pro indie. Hopefully then we can get a chance to change the narrative to all about it. Yes, Absolutely. Right, Henry, I think, hold on a second, but let me just check my TikTok. I think you sent me a message on TikTok. I'm just going to check, I'm going to check. Where is my messages? Are you Henry on TikTok, Henry? I'm sure that you sent me a message and we're going to get that sorted tonight. Where is it? Right, leave that with me. We'll come back to that because I know there's a delay for me speaking on YouTube. We're done. We're done for tonight. It is 12:30. It's very late and I need to go to bed because I am off to, what's it called? Off to Glasgow tomorrow with my lady wife. So please come and watch the videos next week. If you're going to be in Glasgow tomorrow for the Believe in Scotland's Creating Scotland event, please say hello. Please say hello. It would be nice to see some of you. In the meantime, have a great weekend and watch out for Monday's videos, and I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you everybody in YouTube land, and thank you everybody on TikTok land as well. Henry, I'm going to see if we need to get you I'm sure that you sent me a message on TikTok. I'm pretty sure you did. I think you did. I'm going to find you somewhere or another. Apologies for not getting you in. I'll try and get you in tonight though. Enough. Speak to you all later. Take care.